Have you been thinking about rebranding your brand but are unsure how to get started? Well, in this video, I go over 5 things to think about before attempting a rebrand. Welcome to Weekly Brand Tips, brought to you by Elements Brand Management. Weekly videos designed to help you unlock your brand's potential so you can stand out from the competition and create impact. Whenever a new client comes to us for a rebrand at Elements Brand Management, or we recommend a rebrand, before doing so we ask them these 5 questions, and what it does, it helps to determine the scope of the project, what type of rebrand is needed, and whether or not a rebrand is needed at all. So by the end of this video, you'll be clearer on whether a rebrand is currently right for your business. So what is a rebrand? Well, most people think that a rebrand is purely cosmetic, so that's changing the logo or the visual identity. And whilst this plays a role in a rebrand, how much it plays in the actual rebrand of your business is dependent on the individual brand and the scope of each project and what you're trying to achieve. The definition of a rebrand is to change the way a product, organization, or business is seen or perceived by its audience. Before getting started on your rebrand, here are 5 questions to ask yourself and things to think about. So number 1, why are you rebranding? Now this might seem like an obvious question, but it's really important to answer this one because it depends then on the type of rebrand that you actually do, the scope of the project, and how much work needs to go into it and what you need to focus on. Is it due to market changes? Is it due to an acquisition or a merger? It might be because you're just expanding your product line or your services, or you're changing the way that your branded structure sits. So you're going from a house of brands to a branded house. How does it all work internally? It might be that you are just low on sales and engagement, so you're looking to rebrand and refresh the business. It might be that you're just looking to get into a different market or reposition the brand as something else. All these things play into a slightly different type of rebrand and how you're going to approach that rebranding project. Number 2, what are the current problems with your brand? So this might tie into the reason why you are rebranding, but there might be another number of sort of gripes and niggles that you have with your current brand. This could be anything from your logo doesn't work at smaller sizes, it doesn't represent your business in the right way, your messaging is confused, potentially that the way that your visual identity comes across doesn't represent your brand or your audience. Maybe it's not funky enough for your kind of audience, maybe it's too funky for your audience and your audience is a bit more traditional. Your proposition or your promise is now different. It might be that because you've changed so much as a company over the years, that everything that was put in place before doesn't actually represent your brand and the personality that you have, and also the markets that you're in and who you're going after. It's important to identify the things that you currently don't like about your brand or that don't work for your brand, in order to make sure that during a rebranding process you hit all of these objectives and you get all of these things handled. Because if you go to the trouble and the time to put in to rebrand your business, then you want to make sure that you get everything right and you get everything that you wanted to get off that list, that tick list, you get it all done. Because this wants to be the definitive rebrand. It wants to be the thing that you do in order to change it up, but it wants to be something that is going to be there and it's going to have longevity to it. Comment below with a yes if you're thinking about rebranding, and also put in there what is your reason for rebranding. Number 3, what will this mean for your customers and audience? So you need to think about how this rebrand is going to affect your audience and customers. So your current customer base, your future audience, your ideal target audience. You want to think about how this rebrand is going to affect them. It might be that you can address the issues you currently have with your audience about how they perceive the brand in your rebrand, and this can sometimes be a reason for doing this. So you want to collect as much data as you can through customer interviews and surveys to also find out the problems your audience has with your brand and whether or not there is a miscommunication of something going on there, or there isn't an alignment between what your brand stands for and what they're actually being perceived by your audience. So you want to think about your audience before you do a rebrand and try and work out if there's anything that you need to do in order to bring that into the rebrand to really help your audience understand what you're trying to achieve, and also think about how you want to be perceived after the rebrand. It might also be that if you're looking to move into a new market or reposition your brand, that your audience could potentially change. So you really want to think about whether or not your audience that you have now is still going to be the core target audience you're going after, or if there's a slight difference, and how does that affect the perceptions that you will have in that new audience's mind, and how's that also going to affect your existing customer base, and whether or not that is an issue or a problem. If you're moving into a new market, it might be that isn't the problem. The problem is that you want to move into that new market because these new customers are the right fit for you. But it's about thinking about that sort of deeply and just trying to work out whether or not the rebrand is going to work in the way that you want it to. Number 4, what are you trying to achieve with the rebrand? So this ties into a lot of the times with the reason why you are rebranding, but it also gives you a chance to really dive into that vision and that future state. So if you think about where you want your brand to be in, say, 5 years, 3 years, and 1 year, and you map out that plan and you see what you want this rebrand to achieve, so long term and short term, by taking the time to really sort of flesh out this vision of what you're trying to achieve with the rebrand, long term as well as short term, what you start to do is you build out a plan for the rebrand and how it takes shape. So this vision will directly impact the way that you rebrand your business and brand, and it will also help to play into the strategy that you use post rebrand in how you launch it, and also how you're going to reach those target customers that you're trying to reach. Number 5, what type of rebrand do you need? Now, not all rebrands are created equal. So depending on the reason for your rebrand and also the main problems you have with it, that will determine what type of rebrand you need and what is the right type of rebrand for your business or brand moving forward. In some cases, you'll want to do a full rebrand. So this is generally to mark a new era for a brand or business, a change of direction, a repositioning of your brand, or if you've had a massive or major organizational change or a merger or acquisition. This is when a full rebrand really comes into its own, and that is not just a rebrand of the design, so the visual identity, but it'll be looking at the personality, the tone of voice, the brand strategy, the platform, really just a full overhaul of the whole brand and how it is perceived by the audience and how it is built up and created and developed. Semi-full rebrand. So this is similar to a full rebrand, but you're not having to change the visual identity too much. So what will really change is the structural side of things and the strategy, so the brand platform, the brand messaging might change, and the sort of the communications, the personality, the tone of voice. You'll be looking at these layers, and really these will change like in a full rebrand. The visual identity will remain similar to the existing visual identity, but it might change a little bit, so it might be modernized a little bit or be adjusted for a new audience. So there is a big change from the sort of the actual brand that isn't the visual brand, but the visual brand itself will follow suit to a point, but it won't move too far away from the existing visual identity. The other sort of most common really rebrand type is a brand refresh. So what this is when you are just looking to refresh the brand in some way. So you see this with Starbucks or Shell. So over time, if you look at the brands themselves, whenever they redo their visual identity or they sort of rebrand slightly, it is very small increments, and it tends to be a simplification as it goes. So they remove more and more details throughout the years of that visual identity, and that's because over the time they have built up a reputation, they've built their brand, they've built up brand equity, so people understand who they are, they know what they're all about, and therefore they can sort of slowly remove more and more details of their logo, and it's still as iconic because people recognize it straight away. Now, brand refresh is generally when a business is not changing really, but more evolving, growing and adapting to its current self. So it's kind of stepping into itself more. Maybe it's scaling the business a bit. It's adapting and changing, but there's not a massive shift as in the previous two. So there's not a shift in position, there's not a shift in market, there's not a shift in audience. It's more about a growth of that particular company or business, and more of a stepping into themselves or their future vision. They've made their way along their path a little bit more, and they're just looking to mark that time and change with a refresh visually, but also maybe a slight refresh on the internal brand and how they present themselves. So you need to determine what type of rebrand that you need in order to get the best for your business and what your objectives are. So if you think about the things we said earlier on, the questions we said that are the important things to think about, and then from that try and evaluate what rebrand you think is right for your business. If you need any help with this, there's a link in the description below to schedule a call with us at Elements Brand Management. And what we can do is help you to think about the things that you need to think about, work out what type of rebrand is right for you, And if you do need help with the rebrand itself, we can always be there to help you go through this process as well. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, videos come out weekly and they're designed to help you unlock your brand's potential so you can stand out from the competition and create impact. Have a great week, catch up soon, and keep those brands unified.